When you think about it, humanity has always been obsessed with building big things. I mean, from the aqueducts of ancient Rome to the global transport networks we rely on today, we've always built on a massive scale. But these projects do more than just change the scenery, they literally shape our future. And yeah, we've been building big for centuries. There's no question about that. But here's the fascinating part. What has profoundly changed isn't what we build, but how we manage the mind-boggling complexity behind it all. The actual blueprint for management itself has gone through a complete transformation. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The success, or, the catastrophic failure of these colossal projects often has surprisingly little to do with the actual concrete and steel. It's all about the strategic systems we put in place long before a single shovel hits the dirt. So let's dig into how that management blueprint has evolved. All right, so for a huge chunk of modern history, really starting from the Industrial Revolution and moving forward, there was basically one way to do things. One big, dominant, and, for a long time, seemingly unstoppable model for managing these massive undertakings. They called it the rational system. And the best way to think about it is like the ultimate one-stop shop. This model was born in the era of building out gigantic railroad networks and national power grids, right? So it kind of made sense for one huge regulated monopoly to handle the whole shebang, from start to finish. This model was pretty much a closed loop. The sponsor was a regulated monopoly, which meant that all the risk was just internalized. It was absorbed by that one single large system. Planning, financing, design, it all happened under one roof, making the whole process feel incredibly controlled, predictable, and, well, rational. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This highly centralized, top-down system that looks so logical on paper, well, it eventually started to buckle under the weight of its own rigidity. Some really serious cracks started to appear. By the time we get to the 1970s and 80s, the model was really hitting a breaking point. Projects were becoming notorious for blowing their budgets and just failing to perform. The public was losing faith, pointing to a serious lack of accountability and what many saw as just the plain arrogance of these massive, untouchable organizations. And here's the real irony. The very things that were once seen as the system's greatest strengths, its immense size, its total control, its rigid structure, they became its fatal flaws. It was simply too big to be agile, too walled off to be held accountable, and way too stiff for a world that was changing fast. So, as you can imagine, this growing list of very public, very expensive failures created this massive pressure for a totally new way of thinking. The world was shifting from that old model of centralized control to a new one of collaborative governance, from internalizing all the risk to strategically allocating it among different partners. And that brings us right up to the modern paradigm. The approach we see today isn't about one giant company trying to muscle through everything on its own. Nope. Instead, it's about a lead sponsor acting more like a conductor, skillfully orchestrating a whole network of specialized partners. This is what we call the governance model. And if there's one word to remember, it's partnership. Think of all the public-private collaborations you hear about, or those complex agreements where a company might build a project, run it for a while, and then transfer back to the government. The core idea is to intelligently share the risks and the rewards among multiple expert players. Now, this monumental shift didn't just happen overnight. It was a gradual evolution, really. It started with this widespread awareness, a collective uh-oh, that the old system was broken. That led to a period of innovation and experimentation with new partnership models, which in turn forced a realignment of all the old rules and regulations, and finally, this new governance model became the standard practice we see today. And this new reality looks completely different. The sponsors now are alliances and developers. Risk isn't just absorbed anymore, it's strategically allocated to the specific participant who is best equipped to handle it. The entire process is built on partnerships and sophisticated project financing. It's a whole new ballgame. Of course, as you've probably guessed, this new, more complex model isn't some kind of perfect silver bullet. While it solved the old problems, it also introduced an entirely new set of challenges. The governance model was brilliant at fixing the problems of rigidity and the lack of accountability that plagued the old system. But by replacing a single entity with this complex web of partnerships, it introduced its own distinct set of potential pitfalls. And this is really the frontier of project management today. With so many different partners involved, how do you ensure everyone is pulling in the same direction and not just acting in their own self-interest? How do you write contracts that can possibly account for every future possibility? And with no single entity seeing the whole picture, how do you maintain a clear systemic view? So you see, the story of managing these massive projects is one of constant evolution. Each new system is born from the failures of the last. As our world gets even more connected and our ambitions grow, we're talking about projects like colonizing Mars or reversing climate change. You have to wonder, what will the next failure teach us? And what new blueprint will rise from its ashes?